Haley Gillespie, a nutrition and fitness coach here in Garrett County. And after working with hundreds of clients over the years and maintaining my own weight loss after years of struggling, I wanted to share what I found to be the most important mindset shifts for creating healthy behavior change. A lot of these principles have also been extensively researched, so some of this information is also based in that. When trying to lose weight, many people have a tendency to attribute short-term weight loss to recent behavior in the last week or so. But in reality, this behavior is only a small piece of the puzzle. Throughout your life, how you eat and your lifestyle impact your metabolic health, along with your genetic predisposition. It's the interaction of the metabolism you've created over time, along with your diet and movement, that ultimately determines your weight and greatly influences your susceptibility to chronic disease. It's all a cumulative effect. Quick changes in size and weight have more to do with changes in fluid balance and short-term energy stores than it does with fat, which is a long-term energy store. We tend to overestimate the results we can get in the short term and underestimate the power of small changes compounded over time. A person who has taken the consistent long-term effort to build a robust and healthy metabolism will get lasting results over time, while a person who jumps on and off different programs and gets caught up in short-term results will negatively impact both their metabolism and their mindset. This has to do with the idea of self-efficacy. So if you believe in your ability to do something and that your ultimate success or failure is up to you, you greatly increase your chance of succeeding. This is one of the most common attributes in people who have successfully maintained weight loss. If you fail to meet a goal and point to outside circumstances as the cause of not reaching that goal, you weren't really in the right mindset to make that change. Don't feel too bad if you've done this in the past. I mean, who wants to admit that it was their own fault they didn't succeed? Ultimately, there are numerous ways that you can make things easy on yourself, creating structure and hiring a coach. But I have some clients who come to me and want to hand off the ownership of their outcome to me. It's one thing to put your trust in my expertise. It's another to outsource the ownership of your result. I'm with a client 3 hours a week at most. So that's only 3 out of 168 hours that I have control over. You need to own the rest of the time and how you prioritize your goals. If you have truly placed something at a high priority, more than likely it will get done. And when you do fall short, be sure to acknowledge it and learn from the experience. When I initially meet with a client during a health coaching session, we go over goals, and more often than not, their goals will include things like losing weight, lowering blood pressure, and making their ex totally regret breaking up with them. What these all have in common is that they're things we don't have direct control over. They're outcomes and determined by multiple variables, so it's impossible to perfectly predict how all these variables will interact. Going back to the idea of self-efficacy and owning your outcome, if you really want to take ownership of a goal you've set, you must pick something you have direct control over. In most cases, you'll choose a behavioral goal. If weight loss is a goal, you'll want to choose behavior changes in diet and exercise that contribute to weight loss. But you want to determine your success by whether you achieved your set behaviors and not whether you lost X amount of weight. Because of how important success is to your feeling of self-efficacy, you don't want to let it hinge on something you don't directly control, because that failure can really derail future efforts. That's not to say there won't be roadblocks and other things that will stand in your way. It's going to be beneficial for you to anticipate as many of these potential roadblocks as you can and to leave some allowance for unforeseen events. Now, I will say that if you're successfully achieving your behaviors but not reaching the larger goals you're going after, then it might be time for you to consider working with a professional who can help you come up with some goals that will better lead you to your desired outcomes. It's no accident that many of us try to make a healthy behavior change, but then skip over the actual structure and rules part. If we don't create rules, then we aren't failing. But we also aren't creating a framework to change. In order to create change, you need to measurably deviate from your baseline. Without a framework, you'll start to revert back to your normal almost imperceptibly. What we want to do here is make it noticeable when that creeping happens, really to make it glaringly obvious. We also tend to try and make sweeping changes all at once. They run together and can feel overwhelming. You can't tackle everything at once. And part of creating structure is outlining which specific behaviors you want to prioritize and make non-negotiable. Additionally, don't try to go it alone. People who enlist the help and support of others or simply regularly communicate their healthy efforts and small successes get far better results. Of course, you can work with a professional, and along with getting the benefit of that person's expertise, your investment gives you additional motivation to succeed and get the most out of what you've spent. People who eliminate a lot of things from their diet will tend to have some good results in the short term, but after a while, they start to feel a sense of lack. By tagging things as forbidden or bad, you're actually more likely to go off the rails when you do get to have them. Maybe not immediately, but over time, this change in your relationship with that food will be pronounced. Instead of focusing on what you can't have, a better idea is to focus on what you want to put more of into your diet. This is essentially moving from a scarcity to an abundance mindset. So for example, you could decide to eat more power bowls and superfood smoothies, and you could see my previous video on those. Even if you change nothing else, adding these things into your diet will be a positive, but chances are those power bowls and superfood smoothies, which happen to be quite filling and nutrient dense, will naturally take the place of some of the less healthy food in your diet. And this keeps you in the abundance mindset rather than feeling the lack of what you're taking out. Another good way to think about this is swapping out versus eliminating. For instance, you can swap out homemade high quality salad dressings for lower quality store bought ones, or swap out higher quality meats from pastured animals in place of conventional or feedlot meats. A lot of people come to me after trying any number of diets because they worked for this friend or that relative, but more often than not, these results don't really transfer and they don't get the same results. Let me say first off that a diet is not a great approach to weight loss for reasons I could do another whole video on. But it seems like a lot of weight loss efforts seem to be left to happenstance, what you happen to hear on a podcast or see online or what your friend has tried. Instead of allowing your health and wellness to be a mere reflection of your surroundings and the latest article you stumbled upon, why not allow your efforts to start with you, things you enjoy doing, food you like? You can build on existing habits and routines through something called habit stacking, but rarely will trying to copy someone else's success work as well for anyone else. That's not to say you can't learn from other successes, but make sure you pass it through the lens of your existing infrastructure, your habits, support system, strengths, and weaknesses. Because so many of us have tried and failed at weight loss, we have created this idea that weight loss is hard and should be a struggle all the time. What we don't really take into account is that weight loss is hard at times. So there are key pivotal moments in which weight loss is challenging, but most of our effort should be focused in getting the most out of small changes and keeping those consistent over time. Sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking that because a workout or diet plan is drastic or grueling, we're getting more out of it. A 50-minute HIIT workout is not necessarily better than a 20-minute HIIT workout. In fact, it may be less beneficial. I see a lot of people who go to 5 workout classes a week when they could be getting better results out of a planned workout program with less time in the gym. You could think to yourself, do I care more about the results I'm getting or just feeling like I'm working really hard? And the same goes with dieting. You don't get extra brownie points for feeling deprived and eating things you don't enjoy. Instead, you just increase the likelihood that you'll be able to, or that you won't be able to maintain this long term. Your ability to stick with dietary changes largely depends on how taxing you perceive those changes to be and how capable you feel. Many people resist the idea of tracking food intake, and for good reason. It can be easy to fall into a pattern of obsessing over every bite. Similarly, weighing yourself every day can have a detrimental effect on mental health. We have a natural negativity bias, meaning that someone trying to shed extra weight will feel more upset about gaining a pound than they will feel happy about losing a pound. So even the normal gaining and losing of the same few pounds over a series of weeks will lead to a net negative feeling, even though there was no net change in weight. However, there are benefits to tracking that include mindfulness and a heightened level of awareness. There is truth to the saying, you manage what you measure. And a lot of times our perception greatly deviates from reality, especially when tracking food. Because people have a tendency to try and drastically cut calories right away, I often have clients start by simply tracking what they eat before we make any changes. And this increased awareness alone will lead to better choices and more mindful portions. So my advice is to find a measurement tool that works for you to track food, exercise, and progress, but to keep in mind that this is a long-term journey. And make sure that your focus is primarily on the behaviors that you have direct control over and not the results. If you've started a new exercise program, clothing size may be a better indicator than weight. And for most of my clients, tracking macronutrients is more beneficial than tracking calories alone. So the key is finding what works best for you. people struggle with sticking to their healthy commitments, and I find the problem usually lies in either not being specific enough in their commitments or not feeling deeply committed to their action. When you're disconnected from the why of a behavior, you'll find yourself questioning it. It's hard enough to say no to something like skipping a workout once, but when you haven't fully committed to an action, you're actually having to make that hard decision over and over again. And this fatigues our willpower until we're likely to make all kinds of less than ideal choices. We can combat this by choosing behaviors we can immediately connect to a meaningful and emotional why, and by choosing easier behavioral goals, especially when you're just starting out or if you've struggled with behavior change around your weight before. The more daunting we feel behavior is, the more effort it will take us to perform it. If you start small with easier behaviors, you'll strengthen your resolve in making healthy choices and improve your belief in yourself. Over time, you'll be able to take on more challenging behaviors with less effort. A good example of a relatively simple, healthy behavior is to fill half your plate with vegetables on 5 days a week. It gives you something easy to track and perform and also doesn't demand perfection 100% of the time. Even so, you'll need to plan ahead to meet this goal. People who envision exactly how they'll meet their goal, everything from buying the groceries to planning ahead for when they might have to eat out, will have far greater success. They will also think about their goal at several points throughout the day or even create a visual reminder like a Post-it note. It's incredibly important that you choose commitments that you actually will follow through with. Just as following through with your healthy commitments will strengthen your ability to create change, failing to follow through with these commitments will weaken that ability and decrease your likelihood of ever making the change. I see a lot of people at the gym who do long sessions on the treadmill or elliptical and tell me they work out so they can eat what they want. More often than not, these people are not at their ideal body weight. They're paying a lot of attention to the calorie readouts on the treadmill or elliptical and trying to rack up a big number, thinking that will somehow cancel out whatever they end up eating later on. What you need to realize is that those numbers on the machines or even a smartwatch are not a direct reflection of how much energy your body's actually expending. In an upcoming video, I'll go over why shorter, intense workouts actually tend to be more beneficial for weight loss than those long sessions. The calories in, calories out equation is true in a theoretical sense, but what we don't take into account is that calories out is not merely determined by how much activity we take part in. And 2 hours of cardio does not burn twice as many calories as 1 hour of cardio. The math is just not that simple. Unless you're a finely tuned athlete, you probably won't be able to accurately estimate how many calories you're burning as fuel. Instead, you want to shift your body into a state of greater fat burning all around by increasing or preserving muscle mass and optimizing hormones. If you adopt this earn what you eat mindset, you'll likely end up like a dog chasing its tail and never really get anywhere on your journey.